So what's the relationship between odds and probability? Does the temperature feel different if one person says 0 degrees centigrade and another says 32 degrees Fahrenheit? Of course not. It's still freezing. They are just measuring the same things in a different way. That's the same with odds and probability. They are both measuring the same thing, just in a different way. Odds tell you your chance of losing. Probability tells you your chance of winning. As you review this next graph, you will see the relationship among probability, odds, and chance. Do you mean to tell me if I'm a 4-to-1 dog that I don't have a 1 in 4 chance of winning? That's exactly what I mean. And that's a mistake too many players who really don't understand odds make. If you are a 4-to-1 dog, you have a 1 in 5 chance of winning, not a 1 in 4 chance. Well, just as we did back in grade school, we can convert Fahrenheit to centigrade or centigrade to Fahrenheit. We can convert odds to probability or probability to odds. If we want to do odds to probability, we're going to take the number on the left of odds and add it to the number on the right side of odds, and then divide that number by the number on the right side of odds. Let's go through an example. If the odds are 4-to-1, we add the left number to the right number, 4 plus 1 equals 5. Then divide that number on the right, 1 divided by 5 equals 0.20 or 20%. Okay, let's go ahead and convert probability to odds. First, convert the probability into a fraction by converting the percentage probability into a decimal point and then dividing that decimal by 1.00. Subtract the bottom number of the fraction from the top number. That number goes on the left-hand side of odds, and the top number of the fraction goes on the right-hand side of odds. If the probability is 20%, that's the same thing as 0.20. We divide the decimal probability by 1.00, and that gives us 1 divided by 5. We subtract the bottom number on the fraction from the top number. 5 minus 1 equals 4, and then we take that number and put it on the left-hand side of odds. The left-hand side of odds is going to be 4. Then we take the top number of the fraction and put it on the right-hand side, 1. And we have odds 4-to-1. Now, I know that stuff may seem a little complex, but just go through it a few times and you'll get it. Now, do I use odds or probability? Usual poker language, and this is what Daniel uses, is odds. But I'm going to use probability. Probability is much simpler for me to use and understand, for some of my students to use and understand. When I present probabilities, I'm going to express them as a percentage. Some are carried out to a few decimal places, such as 0.6745%, but in most cases, unless it's less than 1%, I'm going to round off to the nearest whole percent, like 32%. Some probabilities are used for specific events, such as the probability you will be dealt ace-king, which is 1% of the time. Or the flop will contain exactly a pair, which will occur 17% of the time. When it's useful, the probability will also be shown in terms of once every so many hands. You're going to receive suited connectors once every 28 hands. When there are many things, many events which could help you, you will hear the phrase "at least." That means I've calculated all the probabilities of anything that could help you and added them all together, then rounded the result to the nearest percent. For example, let's suppose you have ace-king. The top part of this graph shows all the good things that could happen on the flop, the individual probabilities, and then that total is added together and rounded off. You don't need to know all the individual numbers. All you need to know is if you have ace-king, the probability of you catching something good on the flop is 33%, a 1 in 3 chance. You will have a good flop 1 out of every 3 times you hold ace-king. Or said another way, you'll miss with a flop 2 out of every 3 times. Well, what happens if your ace-king is suited? If you take a look at the bottom part of this graph, you see that you're going to hit 2 of your suit 10.94%, essentially 11% of the time. So if your cards are suited, if you have ace-king suited, you now have at least a 44% of hitting something good on the flop. But that's what you can do with probabilities and percentages.